Perfect. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Yes, I'm very well, thank you. And yourself?
I'm all right. I think I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed. I'm extremely hungry. Like I haven't eaten. It's midday today. I'm on my second cup of coffee. And I don't know about you, but it seems like there's less hours in the day, like really less hours in the day. And I'm up at 7 in the morning,
Mm.
and then it comes to this time and I'm going, where's all this time gone? Like,
Yeah.
and I try and think about how people do it really. Getting up, getting dressed, sitting in the traffic for 2 hours, going to, or longer, going to work, coming back at 6, maybe 6:30 in the evening, cooking dinner. When are they doing all the other stuff?
I know, it's crazy, isn't it? I mean, I'm very blessed that, sorry, I'm going to have to move. I'm very blessed that I actually am not in that whole rat race
Same.
of living, So I'm although I'm like you, I find that the hours just fly by, and it's almost like time, if there is such a thing, or the whole kind of planetary energy is just spiraling, and you're it's like being on one of those, reminds me of the gym. Did you ever go on one of those running machines and you kind of, running around trying to catch up?
Yeah, absolutely.
So Nirvana, I mean, obviously that leads me into the topic that we were going to chat about this week of triggers. Because I guess that that must be quite triggering, mustn't it, to be caught in traffic jams and racing around trying to have any spare time in the day.
Yeah, I guess it depends on the person. Like it would be a trigger for me because simply it's not who I am. So if I had to kind of be in that which I won't be, I'm unemployable. I am. I'm too rebellious. I'm too individualistic, and I definitely don't conform. I won't bend down to anything other than, there's nothing above me other than me and my creator or my higher self or my soul self or whatever way you want to put that. So it's definitely not a something that I have to worry about, but the people that's living in that world, it's hard to speak for them. I know that when I was in that world, it definitely was a trigger that I had to get up at 5, sit in 2.5 hours of traffic. So it's not only the fuel consumption, right? It's the time. I always say it's the energy harvesting. There's much more that's being harvested from us than just, our physical presence, but it's the energy harvesting, because there you're sitting in traffic for 2.5 hours or whatever. Then you have to make sure, because now your stress levels are through the roof, because you have to be on time. Otherwise you get a warning. They don't care that there was an accident or a truck or a learner's drive or whatever the conditions are. And then, be on time, just to be kind of bend down to somebody else's woes. That's, and then they don't mind keeping you longer than 5 o'clock, and then you have to sit in that traffic again. So yeah, I can't relate to that anymore. It's been a long time. It's not, and it's funny how we can make things work not being in that world, right?
Absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that you said there, Nirvana, which, okay, I know we can't speak for others, but I wouldn't think that anybody would want to be, to quote Sasha Stone, in a kill grid, in heavily polluted traffic, 2 hours late for their home arrival. I would think personally, from my point of view, that would all be triggering me anyway. And it is about energy harvesting, because actually you are not paid for the time from the time you leave home and arrive at your destination. You are not paid for the amount of disruption in your life and the pollution that you are breathing in. You're not paid. You're not paid for the same journey home, however many hours extra, the whole of that is on your day. And, I think as I say, for me personally, I would find that very triggering. However, I have chosen to opt out of that way of life, because like you, I was in it for many years. And but I've made it work.
Mm.
I've made self-employment work for me. So,
Mm.
you
Being
know,
creative and having that um, belief or that attitude that, I will be taken care of. It's a very hard concept for people to let
mm,
go. And it doesn't mean that I don't sometimes hop into some sort of fear or um, tap back into that kind of thing. Oh my God, what am I going to do this month? It doesn't mean I don't, but they last very short because it has proven to me my 54 years that I will be taken care of. And people, and I've been thinking about that a little bit, I think, in a way. I haven't really put words to it, but, people are thinking about, so how are you being taken care of by other people's help? Well, if that's the way the universe is supporting me, who is that? Who's anybody to judge that? Because I'm not in that box that people think everybody should be. This is, we are enslaved. We're supposed to be born and be, raised so that we can be enslaved into this world. That's not how I have decided to journey into my life. I've decided to be much freer. And yes, there's people coming out of all sorts of places to support and help, and um, and my contribution is just as large, huge. My contribution of time, energy, gifts, counseling, healing, whatever it is, growing food,
mm,
that's a different mindset completely,
yeah.
I think.
Mm.
you know
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is that energy exchange for energy is a completely different mindset for money being exchanged for money. And I think people, can misunderstand that money is just an energy. It
exactly.
is just a form of energy that you and I have chosen to kind of give up that energy transfer,
Mm.
money transfer rather, for energy transfer.
Mm.
Well, obviously money as well. We need money up to a point to pay for
Still.
things.
Mm.
Of course, I'm not saying that, but there are so many things that you can actually do. Like you said, I work very hard. I'm working all the time, in actual fact, and I think that's why the hours just seem to fly by, because
Mm.
I've got a counselling client, or I've got a reading, or I'm doing something else,
Yeah.
doing something on the computer, and it just, I'm certainly not at what I would term out of work, for sure.
Mm. I want to get back to triggers. Sorry, I took a
Mm.
breath and then I choke myself. Let's get back to triggers, because I think, which was so powerful, was listening to your trigger on our circle that you shared. And it really made me think about my sacral chakra as well, and how triggered I have become about my sacral chakra, and what comes to me, like as soon as it comes towards me and it's in a certain energy, in a pervert energy, in a way,
Mm.
in my perception, of course, because it's like, this is too um um what's the word I'm looking for? It's too direct. It's too direct. There's no softness and gentleness and flowingness to it. Then to me it's like, it's too descriptive, or it's too whatever the case may be. Then I get triggered by that. And you were talking a little bit about that, and I don't know if you feel like talking more into that trigger.
Yeah, I guess that, going back to the sacral chakra, which I felt over the past months, that I've really wanted to kind of look at the energy around that whole chakra, because I realize, as a woman or a woman, that there are energies there that out from our childhood, out of shame or fear, or kind of just wanting to numb out, or for whatever reasons, a lot of our creative energy gets also caught up in our sacral chakra. And it's kind of giving that permission to say, no, I'm going to shine my light sexually and creatively, because the two go cap in hand. I mean, after all, we are creating, us women are the creators. With the man's seed, we are the creators. So I wanted to kind of look into that. So I sort of put myself in a situation that enabled me to come out of my comfort zone and step into that. And I'm not going to share detail because that wouldn't be fair to the person I'm referring to. But and actually it did exactly what I hoped it would do. It opened up a kind of fear, but also it has opened up a release of sort of my sexuality, and that I don't have to hide that in a box, and that in fact isn't linked with a man.
Exactly.
In my mind, I was linking the two together, but actually they are two separate things. My sexuality is for me to shine, for me to shine, for me, not for the opposite sex.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, sorry, go on.
Yeah, no worries. I think that is very, very important, because we have to take responsibility for our own sexuality in whichever way we decide to do that. And it is, of course, some of the older generation still has the idea that they know what's best for a woman, or they are very good in bed, and so never really take what the women want. Don't tell me what to do. I know what to do, please, like that type of thing, which completely minimizes the power of my own, what I know, what I want and how I want it. And so it's a really good, this is what these gifts are, these triggers, right? Coming back to triggers.
Yeah,
Because
absolutely.
I can go off about sexuality on a whole another line.
So could I.
Yeah. But to come back to these triggers are really so valuable, because they're medicine. I always think about homeopathic medicine, because it's the only way to really heal something is to kind of bring more of that to you, so that you can get stronger and heal, that weakness about yourself, the Achilles heel,
And actually something I'd really like to share quickly on that is that for me, I didn't want to get mixed up in other people's triggers of my sexuality. And I'll just speak into that. Is what I mean is that my parents' triggers of their sexuality became my triggers. And so I learned that to own other people's triggers, and that actually your sexual energy should be free. There should be no label to it. There should be nothing attached to that any more than there is attached to an oak tree, or a flower, or an animal. They're not suddenly, a lion's not running through the jungle worrying about its sexuality. And yet us as humans, we have all this stuff that's compressed into us through generations and beliefs and stories and our experiences. And I wanted to unpack that and get rid of it.
Yeah.
Because that was triggering me, was those things that other people made me believe about myself was what was triggering me.
Yep.
But the minute I had the kind of wanting to look in that Pandora's box again and think, hey, come on, what belongs to me and what doesn't here? I was able to kind of frighten the life out of myself, but at the same time, really kind of get into that whole energy of the triggers.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, and I know as a sexual abuse survivor that some of those triggers are actually quite a lifelong trigger that's part of the cellular memory. Now there's lots of things that you can do, like tapping or TRE, trauma releasing exercise. There's lots of stuff that can help you to minimize those triggers. But at the end of the day, as I always say, is you got to face them, acknowledge them, share it with your partner, and let it go in that way. So as long as you have a conscious partner that kind of says, okay, I know this is a trigger, so I'm not going to push her head down into my crutch, for instance, that's a trigger, then you've got a conscious partner. Then it's up to the person to then kind of go, okay, I want to take this a step further and step further, because the partner is not triggering that cellular memory within them. So yeah, it's
And
triggers.
of course, not everybody's got a conscious partner. There are a lot of people out there that, whether male or female, that do not have a conscious partner. And so what I would say to those people is, listen to the message in the trigger. What is it trying to teach you? What is it trying to help you to understand about yourself? What is the message in it? Because when you listen, it's like smelling a flower. If you're rushing through a garden, you're not taking in the scent of the flower. But if you're walking slowly and you're paying attention, you're smelling that flower. And it's the same with the trigger. You have to pay attention. You have to understand what it's trying to tell you, what its smell is even.
Exactly.
Because then you can take that in and think, oh, okay, I've got this. That's another little fragment of me that's come back together.
Yeah, and also which is valuable, and I certainly experienced that, because by no means am I sitting here, saying, oh, I'm so good with all my triggers. In fact, I had the last 2 weeks, I've had a full on trigger, and what happens is that we run this poison nearly, of the trigger in our heads, because there's no soundboard. Yeah, there's no soundboard, there's no other to kind of hear us. And one of the most valuable things is to have that other to say, listen, this is my trigger, this is what I'm going through, I am in full rage, full destruction, I am, I will show you kind of all of those types of things, because I was triggered. And because I had the other listening to me while I was speaking, it's not necessarily as much as the advice was very valuable, but it's in a way you get there yourself, like when you are talking about something, you've got some, when it's in your head, it's the same thing running over and over. But when I was able to share it with a beautiful sister, that this is what's happening for me, I came to the realization myself that as long as I'm carrying this, I'm poisoning myself, taking poison, hoping the other person would die. So that's what resentment is like. I was also holding on to that energy, and it wasn't really affecting the other person. The minute that I had the realization, which I know, but because I was so in the darkness of my shadow trigger, my passive aggressive side, which was completely woken up, once I got, by sharing, oh my God, and I released it, it's completely cleared.
Yeah.
Completely cleared. And I find that so magical, because every time it's like a miracle for me when that happens, because you forget, it doesn't matter who you are, you could be the highest spiritual person or whatever, you're still a human being, a spirit having a human experience. And this is why we are here to have these emotions and experiences and to learn from them.
Yeah, I mean, I hear that, I hear what you're saying. I mean, to me, advice, not keen on that word. Not keen on people that want to give advice, in the sense of that it has to be given from a neutral place. It has to be given by being heard and reflected back to the person who's
100%.
speaking into that. Because otherwise, where is it coming from? It's coming from another person who has a completely different experiential journey than you.
Yeah.
And nobody can understand, apart from God or Gaia or whoever, who you are. So they don't really have a right to give advice. And so I would be very kind of mindful of the kind of so-called soothsayers who want to immediately sort of shut you up, put you down, and tell you what to do.
Yeah.
But at the same time, when, like you say, you shared your story with one of our circle sisters, and a conscious person, and you were able to kind of reflect back into that, which is that's the kind of alchemy of the whole thing, the whole trigger, and then the energy just gets dispersed and it's
also
gone like a cloud.
Exactly. And she also holds up the mirror for me. So, is to say, so, okay, so what is that for you? How does that feel for you? Or,
That's right.
so it's like, it brings it back to me without somebody fixing it and saying, and then going, oh my God, did you hear Nirvana? Like, oh, she's,
Well,
Nirvana.
what she should do is
Yeah. And there's no
what you should do.
Nirvana. Exactly. Some people say, oh, there's no Nirvana in that kind of a thinking. How can you know what I'm saying? So it's taking away the judgment. It is definitely taking away advice. We can offer suggestions, or we hold up the mirror and hold up and saying, okay, so what does it feel like? How does it manifest for you when you are in this way? And I think MEPS, in a way, the mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual, which is balancing the four bodies, is what you and I are attempting to provide. Is that mirror, is that space for people to say, like, I'm dealing with this, or I've got this trigger, or I'm, I need somebody to hear me and hold the mirror up for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's kind of like allowing them to have the space that they need in order to find those mirrors, in order to find themselves within that safe container, within that non-judgmental, trusting container that, you and I are offering. And obviously we will be setting up further things for people to join us in that when when they want to, so that they can sort of join a safe container and actually be held and just be themselves, whatever that may be, and just be witnessed in that, just be witnessed, because by witnessing somebody, you're giving them permission to just try stuff out. Is that me? How does that feel? What is that? And actually find themselves, by that mirroring that is so powerful.
And it's for me, the more we are able to share that authenticity, that shadow side, that trigger part of us, the more we can share that, and let others hear that, I'm also human. I'm going to bump my toe, I'm going to bleed, I'm going to get angry, or react whatever way. But it is then to bring it back into what is the message for me, and where is the message. But the main point is, for me, is that so that others can feel that it's okay to stumble. It's okay to get angry, not to the point where you're taking a knife to somebody. That's not what I'm talking about. But we need the shadow side of ourselves in certain, you can't separate from the shadow. The shadow is who you are, your ego, your soul, everything is part of who you are. So in order to share that, people who feel embarrassed, or they feel they're going to be judged or whatever, when we share, we give permission, to others to say, oh my God, I don't feel alone. It's always my most important part of what I'm, by joining you with this MEPS, is to share authentically.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, the shadow is there to remind us about the parts of us that need to be held and loved. The shadow is a part of us that has distanced itself because it felt unloved. And so that's why the shadow is so important to come into the light, because it shows us where we can love ourselves more. It gives us that message. It says, hey, this was what happened to me as a 5-year-old, and I don't need to feel like this anymore. Come back to me, come back, be loved, be held. And so, MEPS is looking at how that's manifesting as a physical thing, how it's manifesting as a spiritual thing, an emotional or mental thing. A thought can keep repetitively, chattering away, and then you suddenly can find that part of yourself. The thought just dies down and it integrates into your energy. So it's all about the parts of us that never felt love, really, as I see it.
Absolutely. And it's part of teaching it's the biggest teacher that we can have is these triggers. We absolutely have to thank each one of those triggers, each one of those things that happen, is just to thank them for the teaching, and for the reminder, as you say, of, am I loving myself enough to A, B, C? Am I, respecting myself enough to, what is that trigger about? What is it teaching me? And thank the trigger, rather than going to the person and saying, what a terrible person, he did this, he took that, she, whatever the case may be. Is okay, thank you for bringing me that lesson about, what you're reflecting back at me, that I either need to learn or heal, or, transform, whatever it is,
Yeah, I mean, just looking at what you've just said about, that person doing this or that to me, that could have been something that was mirrored back when you were an 8-year-old, because you never had the same amount of sweets that somebody else had, and that resentment can last in the body or in the psyche, in the energy system all that time. And yet the minute you think, oh my gosh, that's been triggering me all these years, and you integrate it, and then it just alchemizes and off it goes into the ether.
Absolutely.
It doesn't always have to be a hugely complicated issue, I've found, either. Sometimes it can be simple things that have really hurt people over the years, and they don't realize where it's coming from and how to resolve it. So
yeah. And so I mean, again, we just want to send a call out to you who's listening. Share your triggers with us. Sounds like I had a glass of wine or two. Share your triggers with us. How are you coping? How are you dealing with your triggers? And just remember that, there is no judgment, huge compassion and love and respect, that, we're all here on this journey together, and here to learn from each other, right?
Absolutely. So at MEPS, at MEPSology, on Facebook, please lean into us. Please share triggers. If anybody's got something they want to share, just pop it on the YouTube channel chat or the Facebook chat, and we'll be happy to lean into that for you. So yes, wishing you all well this lovely day.
Yep, fantastic. And such a beautiful day here in Cape Town as well. I see the sunshine is in London as well. So as you get into spring, we get into autumn. And just lovely catching up with you again today. And looking forward to our next big catch up, which I think will be quite interesting.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, Nirvana, lovely catching up with you too. Take care, and speak next week.
Have a beautiful day.